We are in the era of superhero media. They dominate the screens just as westerns and musicals did in the past. When you hear the word superhero movie, certain images come to mind, certain expectations. The costumes, the heroics, the big and climactic action set pieces. We are all familiar with the blueprint. The superhero movies and TV series that aim to be more subversive or lean into a different genre can still be formulaic. The climax still include those big action set pieces, although some filmmakers, when given the freedom, try to execute them in unconventional and high-concept ways. And then sometimes we get those gems that are really good and buck the conventions, yet go unnoticed. Boss Color is a 2018 superhero movie co-written by Julia Hart and Jordan Horowitz and directed by Hart. Set in a dystopian future in Midwest America where it hasn't rained in 8 long years, Boss Color is the story of Ruth, a wandering vagrant who has seizures that trigger earthquakes. While trying to escape the government agents and scientists who want to study her, Ruth journeys back to her family home to reunite with her mother Bo and daughter Lila, who both possess the ability to telekinetically take objects apart and put them back together again, a power that Ruth once had but is now lost. The family live on the outskirts of town and have done so for multiple generations, hiding themselves and abilities from the world in order to keep themselves safe. In following with family tradition to conceal their powers, Bo tried to do the same with Ruth when she was younger, but couldn't. Ruth's powers were different and far too immense to contain, and that is when the seizure started.
And when they did, I couldn't use my abilities anymore.
Ruth was born to take apart the sky, and when she was prevented from doing that, her abilities got turned inward and wasn't just self-destructive for Ruth, but to everyone around her. I think it's clear that Hart was trying to depict in this fantastical way is how society teaches women to shrink themselves, to silence and conceal their potential or else be met with the consequences. The first place we hear this message is from our parents, unfortunately, and it's done to keep us safe. We hear it from our mothers because they speak from experience.
It was too dangerous after what happened with Martha at school. I couldn't bear the fear. Here we can live our lives in peace and no one will know our secret.
But by doing all of that is to our own detriment. And when we are finally free to express our true selves, it can be amazing. Look what can be accomplished. A prevalent theme in this movie is that of brokenness. Broken objects, broken powers, a broken world, and broken people all in need of fixing. The film challenges the words that come from the character Bo in her opening monologue.
I know better than anyone. If something's broken, it stays broken.
Words that most likely were passed down from the generations of women in their family that possessed these abilities.
I broke that bowl. I remember I wanted to use my abilities to fix it, but our abilities can't fix things.
You can only take things apart
and put them back together the way they were.
If something's broken, it stays broken.
What if, instead of cardboard, you tried to put the glass back?
It won't work.
Why not at least try?
Because if something's broken, it stays. This isn't gonna work.
But what if it did? For a while, the seizures didn't happen, and I thought maybe it fixed me. But then, one morning, they came back.
She thinks I just like fixing things. I mean, I do.
You fixed the record player?
Come on, I'll show you.
You can finish cleaning up first. How'd you do it?
Some of the screws were stripped, but I found a bigger screwdriver, so I was able to get them loose. Inside, 2 of the wires were burnt, so I had to replace them. But it was much easier than a toaster.
It wasn't easier. You just got better.
I read some reviews that compared Ruth's return to the biblical story or parable of the prodigal son, and I hard disagree with that. Side note, prodigal does not mean returning. This is a story that is very much about the relationship between mothers and daughters, and a more apt comparison would be the Greek myth of Demeter and Persephone. During the months that Demeter's daughter Persephone is in the underworld, Demeter brings the winter, Plants die, the world is cold and barren, and once Persephone returns, so does spring. I haven't talked too much about the plot because it's secondary. This film is very much character-driven. The government agents looking for Ruth are there, but their presence is peripheral. Fast Color is the second film directed by Julia Hart and was co-written with her husband, Jordan Horowitz. Hart has been directing for a few years, and her short credits have seen her dip into different genres. 2020 saw the release of 2 of her films, the jukebox musical romance Stargirl and the crime thriller I'm Your Woman. The cast is amazing. Strong performances all around. Lorraine Toussaint is a veteran, and in a better world she can point to whatever role she wanted and would get it. Toussaint has such a strong and commanding presence as Beau, the matriarch of the family. Her quiet strength holds back a sadness that you can feel that is right under the surface every time she speaks. I heard that Lorraine Toussaint also had a hand in shaping her character's arc and even the set design. The flowers and plants drawn all over the kitchen were apparently her idea. Gugu Mbatha-Raw just embodies Ruth. She perfectly captures that hard-living, always on edge, vagabond nature, as well as the rough vulnerability. There's a brief moment where Ruth is alone in the bar listening to X-Ray Specs, and you see her just get lost in the music for a small moment. The tension in her body melts away in those few seconds. Then there's Sanaya Sidney. I am so impressed by this young actor. Her credits are short but super impressive. Roots, Hidden Figures, American Horror Story, and Fences. I first saw her in the very short-lived series The Passage, where she was the co-lead alongside Mark Paul Gosselaar. I believe she was 10 years old when they were making Fast Color. Now, everyone talks about the first time we see Lila use her power on the bowl, but there's another scene towards the end where Lila disintegrates the handcuffs around her wrist. I don't know if Julia Hart realized at the time how powerful of an image that was. So, everyone calls this a superhero movie. The writer, director, the reviewers, Wikipedia. I honestly wouldn't have called it that for the reasons I hinted at the intro. A science fiction or fantasy drama? Yeah. Superhero? I don't know. I mean, Ruth even says this.
We're not superheroes, Lila. We're just trying to get by.
Fast Color has more in common with, say, Queen Sugar than Black Lightning. But since that's what the writers and directors call it, then yes, okay. You know, when you choose to break traditional genre conventions and go against the usual expectations, you'll be met with confusion. Now, that's not to say that Fast Color story is something completely foreign to superhero movies. It's just that the majority of the film would be condensed into the first act of a typical origin story movie. Something else to note, the main cast has 3 black women. The only other superhero movie that had a black woman as the main character was Catwoman, and she was the only black person in her whole movie. You know, you often hear about some books or films being a story that all women can relate to. The phrase, oh, this could be about a woman anywhere, gets tossed around a lot. Yet, most of those stories are about the lives of white women, and white isn't the default. The experiences of white women are not always universal. Fast Color could be about a woman anywhere, and by having that any woman be black adds an extra layer. I mean, it's a black family whose maternal history is filled with them trying to escape oppressive forces. You shouldn't brush that off either by trying to say, no, it's about all women, because it can be both. 2 things can exist at the same time, I promise. Julia Hart talked about when she was writing this script, she had subconsciously envisioned the character of Ruth to look like herself. It wasn't until they watched Beyond the Lights, directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, and saw Gugu Mbatha-Raw that they agreed that she would be their first and really only choice. The film premiered at South by Southwest on March 10th, 2018, and was met with favourable reviews. Not too long after, Code Black Films and Lionsgate acquired the distribution rights and set the film to be released the following year on April 19th. The advertising for the film, as far as I'm concerned, was basically all word of mouth through black film spaces. But word of mouth through social media can only do so much. Back then, we all knew that this would most likely have a very limited release, as most indie films do. But oh my goodness, it played in 25 theaters across the US for a month, and then slipped away for Blu-ray and digital download. I was over here in the UK loudly wondering when it would be available for me to watch. In April 2019, during the Q&A with the Movie Report, Julia Hart spoke out about this.
There is so much lip service in this industry about wanting women to tell stories, wanting people of color to tell stories, wanting to tell stories about women and people of color. And that's what a lot of it is at the end of the day, and it's so frustrating. There wasn't a single ad for this movie anywhere. And it's a beautiful freaking poster with this beautiful woman's face on it. And people want to see this. And I would like to believe that the only reason that people didn't get to it was because, the money wasn't put behind it, because there continues to be, I'm honestly like, it might not have gone the way we wanted it to, but I'm really grateful to Lionsgate and Code Black for releasing this movie, because you know what? Every other indie distributor at the end of the day passed on it. I'm going to get real here because I'm in a mood. There were women and people of color at all of these companies that loved the movie, and there were some men and some white men who loved the movie. And at the end of the day, when it got to the white male gatekeeper, time and time again, they said, I don't know who this movie is for. I don't know how to market it.
False Color doesn't resemble the other types of superhero movies that were in cinemas at the time of its release. It's an original story, not based on any pre-existing source material. It sticks out even when you compare it to unconventional superhero movies that came before, such as Unbreakable and Chronicle. The former had big A-list names attached, and the latter was in the found footage style with grand displays of big CGI action. Both were also about men. False Color is quiet and contemplative. It's an intergenerational family drama about healing familiar bonds and healing oneself. It's slow-moving with many quiet and still moments where you sit with the characters and time seems to stretch and linger. The dystopian setting doesn't focus on warring bandits that fight over resources, but the simple mundanities of everyday life, of people who have adjusted to this world now being their new normal. The signs on the walls reminding people to conserve water, the price of water being raised stupid high, and the damn near empty shelves are commonplace. I hate how relatable all of this is. This is basically where we are headed. It's a place and time where the small random acts of kindness mean everything. I really like post-apocalyptic settings in entertainment where the world has ended, but life continues. The mundanities of everyday life, the routines that we do without really thinking, the busy work, all of that still goes on. I find these to be a lot more grounded in reality than what we are used to seeing. That's not to say that False Color doesn't have any exciting or thrilling moments. Ruth is on the run from the government and she has those earthquake-causing seizures after all. I just appreciate the small quiet moments that it has. There are a small number of works I can even think of that are set after the big event that have moments like this. I think there's hints of it in Steven Universe and even in some Legend of Zelda titles like Breath of the Wild. Last year I rediscovered this manga and OVA, Yokohama Shopping Log. It's about the daily life of a robot running a coffee shop after the world's ecology has collapsed. If anyone knows of any good slice of life post-apocalyptic media, please tell me about it. So here I was going to talk about the beautiful cinematography and the soundtrack, but I want you to experience all of that within the context of the film. A lot of things in False Color are left intentionally vague. The world that they built, the history of the family, and are there truly more people like them? This was an origin story where the adventure begins right at the very end, and I want more. I think I made it clear that I am almost always here for TV sequels for movies that never really got their due. And lucky me, a False Color TV series is in the works. The series is in development at Amazon Studios under Julius Tenen and Viola Davis production company, Juvie Productions. Julia Hart and Jordan Horowitz are returning as writers. It hasn't been confirmed that any of the actors from the movie are returning for the show, or whether this will pick up where the movie left off, or if the series will retell the movie's plot in the first few episodes and then go off from there. Whatever the case may be, I am invested and hopefully you are too. You can watch False Color in the UK on Netflix. I heard it's on Hulu in the USA, I don't know for sure, but it is available to stream, rent and purchase if you go and look it up. I wanted to get talked about more, given the oversaturation of superhero media. We need to pay attention to works that are a part of it, yet go against the grain. I hope I convinced you to seek out this movie, and if you watched it already, pester more people to watch it. Controversial opinion here, but Catwoman wasn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Yeah, it's not that good either, but there are way worse superhero movies out there. So, yeah. I'm bad at outros, goodbye.